As we all know, determining fair and equitable compensation is a cornerstone of any successful organization. Job evaluation, with its systematic approach to assessing the relative worth of jobs, plays a vital role in achieving this goal.
Ever wondered if job evaluation is worth it for your organization? Let's dive into its origins, evolution, and the value it can bring to your HR strategy. Job evaluation began in the early 20th century in the U.S. banking sector. Initially, it was a method to determine the relative worth of different jobs within an organization. Over time, it has evolved into various forms, including computerized systems, ensuring more accuracy and consistency. Positioned within human resource management, job evaluation is a systematic way of assessing job roles, responsibilities, and requirements. It involves input from specialists, either internal HR professionals or external management consultants. These experts bring valuable insights and a structured approach to the process. Why consider job evaluation? One of its key benefits is facilitating equal pay for work of equal value, promoting fairness and transparency. It also helps in defining clear job hierarchies and responsibilities, which can improve organizational efficiency. However, there are risks to consider. Job evaluation can be time-consuming and costly, especially for smaller organizations. It requires regular updates to remain relevant, adding to the ongoing costs. In an international context, job evaluation helps standardize roles across different regions, ensuring consistency and fairness in global operations. But it also needs to account for local market conditions and cultural differences, which can complicate the process. The effectiveness of job evaluation can vary depending on the sector. In the public sector, it helps in maintaining transparency and fairness, which are crucial for public trust. Private companies benefit from streamlined operations and clear career progression paths. For the third, charity sector, it ensures that resources are allocated efficiently and fairly. Looking ahead, the future of job evaluation seems promising with advancements in AI and machine learning. These technologies can make the process more efficient and accurate. So, is job evaluation worth it? For large organizations, the benefits often outweigh the costs due to the scale and resources available. Medium-sized companies can also benefit, though they need to carefully manage the costs and implementation process. For small organizations, it might be more challenging to justify the investment unless they have specific needs that job evaluation can address. Job evaluation can be a powerful tool for enhancing fairness, transparency, and efficiency within an organization. However, it's important to weigh the costs and benefits based on your organization's size and sector. By understanding its potential and limitations, you can make an informed decision that aligns with your strategic goals.
How can we ensure our job evaluation practices are not only rational and objective but also perceived as fair and just by our employees? How can we strike a balance between internal equity and external competitiveness? And how can we use job evaluation not just to determine pay but also support broader HR initiatives like career development and competency framework development? With these questions as our guide, let's hand over to our colleagues Jane AI and JKI to lead us deeper into the fascinating world of job evaluation.
Ever heard of a professional cuddler? It's a real job, believe it or not.
It is.
And it really makes you wonder, how do they even begin to figure out how much a job like that is worth? Kind of makes you think,
It does.
It's a question that takes us down this rabbit hole, this really complex and actually pretty interesting world of job evaluation.
Yeah, we're really going deep on this one, like really getting into the systems that the organizations use to kind of make sense of this whole, world of work and pay scales and all of that.
Right, because we all just want to be paid fairly, right?
That's it. That's the goal.
Right.
Job evaluation, JE, as it's called.
Acronyms.
Right. It's all about creating some sort of structure.
Yeah.
And ideally, objective way of saying, okay, this job is worth this much, this job is worth this much, at least, in comparison to other jobs, obviously.
Okay, so it's not about, slapping a price tag on each employee's forehead.
No.
It's more about creating a system that's fair for everyone.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's like building a fair pay system, right, from the ground up, the architecture of it all.
Okay, I'm following. So how do they do it? I mean, how do they actually figure out, what each job is worth? What are the nuts and bolts?
Well, there are these traditional methods that have been used for ages.
Like what?
So the most popular one, and it's used everywhere, is the point method. And it tries to be objective, at least that's the idea. It breaks down every job into these things called, wait for it, compensable factors.
Compensable factors. Okay.
Yeah, so these factors, they're basically like the ingredients of what makes a job, well, worth paying for, right?
Okay, so like what kind of ingredients are we talking about? Give me an example.
Sure, you've got your basics, education, experience. Then there's the complexity of the job, the responsibility it has, even the working conditions. Is it dangerous? All that stuff comes into play.
Okay, so like a brain surgeon would get a lot of points for knowledge required, keeps people alive.
Exactly.
Well, a construction worker, maybe they score higher on risk of falling off a building.
Right. Working conditions, maybe? See? You get it. So each factor gets a number based on, how much it's worth. And then you add them all up.
And the bigger the number, the bigger the paycheck.
Well, in theory at least. But, and this is a big but.
There's always a but.
Right. There's a lot of room for interpretation, how do you actually measure how complex a task is? Or how much emotional heavy lifting a job takes? It's not exactly cut and dry.
That's true. So you're saying even with the point system, it's not a perfect science.
Exactly. And that's where some of the criticisms of traditional job evaluation come in. It's complex, it can be expensive to get it up and running, and like you said, not as objective as it pretends to be.
Okay, so if these traditional methods are if they're not perfect, what are companies doing about it? Sticking with the old ways? Or are there new ways of doing things popping up?
Things are definitely changing. I mean, some companies, they cling to the old ways, but a lot of them are realizing that they need something more, customized. They're moving to these hybrid approaches.
Hybrid, how so?
So they might take a pre-designed system, maybe from some big consulting firm, right? Use that as a starting point, but then they tweak it, make it fit their own company culture, their specific industry, all that. Because every company is a little different, right?
So instead of buying something off the rack, you're saying it's more like they're getting a tailored suit.
There you go. That's the idea. Find the right fit. And it goes beyond that, too. It's not just about tweaking the old stuff. We're seeing this big push to include things that, honestly, traditional job evaluation kind of ignored for a long time. Stuff like emotional intelligence, creativity, the ability to roll with the punches, adapt to change.
Yeah.
The soft skills, basically.
So job evaluation is trying to, catch up with the times.
Yeah.
The way work is actually done now.
Righty, yeah. And it's a big job because the way we work, it's changing all the time, right? And if the way we evaluate work doesn't change with it, well, we're going to have problems.
It's wild to think about how much things have changed, I remember when emotional intelligence wasn't even a thing people talked about. But how do you actually work that kind of stuff into job evaluation? Are there, companies out there actually doing this well? Give me some examples.
Oh, absolutely. There's this one model that's gotten a lot of attention. It's called the Gender Neutral Job Evaluation System. GNJES for short, because,
Acronyms.
Right. Anyway, as the name kind of gives away, it was created specifically to deal with, the potential for gender bias in the old systems, which, let's be honest, was a big problem.
Yeah, no kidding. So how does it work, this GNJES thing?
So they basically said, okay, we need to broaden our horizons here. So they included things like emotional labor, interpersonal skills, all that good stuff that often got ignored in the past. Women were often expected to do that stuff, but it wasn't really valued in the same way.
Because it was seen as, just part of being a woman or whatever.
Exactly. Which is, a whole other conversation. But with GNJES, they're trying to level the playing field. Plus, they really emphasize transparency, being super clear about how they're assessing each factor, trying to make the whole process as objective as possible.
So it's like shining a light on all those things that used to be hidden in the shadows.
Exactly. And it's not even just about adding new stuff. It's about really looking at the language, the criteria, making sure they're not biased from the get-go,
Rewriting the rules of the game, basically.
That's a great way to put it. And look, GNJES is just one example, but it shows that things are changing. There's this push for job evaluation to be more, more thoughtful, more equitable.
Speaking of changing, what about AI? Everyone's talking about AI these days. Is it playing a role in all this?
Oh, for sure. Some companies are using it to analyze job descriptions, figure out the skills and experience needed. Some are even using it to suggest salaries.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. The hope is that if you can automate some of this stuff, you take human bias out of the equation. Right?
Yeah, I get that. But, and maybe I'm just being cynical here, can an algorithm really understand what a job actually entails, Especially jobs that require things like creativity, empathy, that human touch?
That's the million-dollar question right there, and something everyone's trying to figure out. Because you're right, AI is only as good as the information you feed it. If it's trained on biased data, well,
Garbage in, garbage out.
exactly.
Right.
But if it's done right, AI could be huge for creating a job evaluation system that's actually fair. It's not about replacing humans entirely, but about giving us the tools to make better, less biased decisions.
So it sounds like the key is being really, really intentional about every step of the process, right?
100%. Transparency, constantly checking your work, being willing to adapt and change. That's how you make job evaluation work for everyone.
This has been super interesting. Like, honestly, I had no idea how much went into this stuff. But let's bring it back to our listeners for a second. How does all this relate to them, to their jobs, their lives? Why should they even care about job evaluation?
That's a great question. And the answer is, whether you realize it or not, this affects every single person with a job. It's not just about your paycheck, although obviously that's a big part of it. It's also about your career path, promotions, even how satisfied you are with your job overall.
So it's bigger than just the number on your paycheck.
Way bigger. It's about understanding how your company values different kinds of work, where you fit in, and how to make sure your work is recognized and, rewarded fairly.
So knowledge is power, like they say.
100%. When you understand how this stuff works, you can have more informed conversations with your boss, with HR, even with a union rep if you have one.
It's about making sure everyone's playing by the same rules.
Exactly. And when employees feel like they're valued, like they're being paid what they're worth,
Yeah.
everyone wins, right? Morale goes up, people work harder, they're more invested in their jobs.
So it's really about creating a better work experience for everyone involved.
That's a great way to put it.
We've covered a lot of ground here, talked about the nitty-gritty of job evaluation, how it's being criticized, and some of the cool ways it's changing. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, something that goes beyond the technical stuff, something about the bigger picture of work itself.
I'm listening.
So we've been talking about how these systems try to put a number on different jobs. But in a perfect world, how should we decide what a job is truly worth? Is it all about, how much money it brings in? Or should we consider other things, like the impact it has on society, how creative it is, how much emotional intelligence it takes?
Whoa, that's a deep one. And what about jobs that don't fit neatly into a box? Artists, caregivers, people working to make the world a better place. How do you measure the value of work that might not make a ton of money but makes life richer,
It's complicated, right? No easy answers, but it's a conversation worth having.
Definitely. The way we value work, it affects everything. Our society, our economy, even our own happiness.
Yeah, no doubt. We could go on and on about this, probably talk for hours.
Seriously.
But gotta wrap up
Yeah.
sometime, right? Hopefully, though, it's something our listeners will keep thinking about.
Yeah, for sure. This topic, it deserves way more time than we have. But for anyone who's like, wait, I want to learn more, don't worry.
We got you covered.
Exactly. First up, we always got to give a shout out to our sources, right?
Yeah.
So there's this thing called the NHS Job Evaluation Handbook.
Catchy title.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's actually really interesting. It's like a behind-the-scenes look at how one organization actually does job evaluation.
And the best part?
It's public. Anyone could check it out.
Awesome.
We'll put a link on our website, so don't worry about trying to scribble it down right now.
Perfect.
We'll also link to some more info on that G&JES model we talked about, plus some other cool stuff that's happening in the world of job evaluation.
Because whether you're, just starting out climbing the corporate ladder, or even if you think this whole thing doesn't apply to you, trust me.
It does. It really does.
This stuff matters.
It's about understanding the value of work, all work,
Mm-hmm.
and challenging the old ways of thinking,
Quickly.
trying to build a better experience for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to everyone listening, don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Rock the boat a little. Fight for fairness at work. And let's keep this conversation going.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because when we value work the right way, everybody wins.
Couldn't agree more. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into, job evaluation. It's been real. Until next time, keep learning, keep those brains ticking, and let's all try to make the working world a little less crazy, huh?